Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. Om Shri Radha Krishnaya Namaha. Om Shri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome everyone. Can you hear me okay at the back? You can't hear? Not really means yes or no? Can hear, cannot hear. Okay, I think we're good. Welcome everyone, and welcome to all the people watching online as well. Guess we have a little smaller attendance because of Mother's Day maybe, and that's going to come in our class today. Kakkalu nalang kriyate, kakkalu drishta drishtartha sadhana patiyan amuya kanthastitaya Prashnottara Ratnamalikaya Kaswapna nibaha jagrat vyavahara satyam apichakim satyam brahma kim mithya yadvidyanashyam tucham tu shashavishanadi kacha nirvachaniya maya kim kalpitam dvaitam kim paramarthikam syat advaitam chagnyata kutaha anadihi vapushascha poshakam prarabdham channadayi kim chayuhu. So just to remind you, we're not chanting in correct. So in the last, you have cha annadayi kim. When that cha and a combine together, it's supposed to be pronounced as cha. But we had split it out split it up like this so that it's easier for those who don't know Sanskrit to hear the words. But when I'm reciting, I think just automatically my brain sees it. After many, many years of Sanskrit, my brain sees it together. So it's cha annadaikim, and who is literally the giver of food, the provider of food, but we extend it to say who gives life, who sustains life, and the answer was cha ayuhu and ayu. Ayu means breath or lifespan. We took it as longevity, however much our lives are, however much we are, I don't like to use the word destined, however much our prarabdha gives us in this lifetime. So that is the giver, the life, of lifespan. Ko brahmanairupasyaha, ko brahmanairupasya, gayatriyarkagnigochara-shambhuhu, gayatriyarkagnigochara-shambhuhu, gayatryam adityecha, gayatryam adityecha, agnau shambhau cha, agnau shambhau, kim nu, kim tat tattvam. So the last class we had a lot of basic Vedanta definitions, understanding of what is Satyam, what is Mithya, what is Tucham, Brahman. So now the text kind of reverts back. Remember, that was not the focus of the text, most of the text. The focus was really Dharma Shastra, how to live a dharmic life, how can we be better people in society in interacting with others. So that last several verses were just kind of and I think I mentioned last class, even though the text is attributed to Adi Shankaracharya, it just seems like the whole dharma, writing about a whole text on dharma, seems that it's may not be his thing, really, may not have been his thing. So this verses about Vedanta comes in, and that's probably a contribution of Adi Shankaracharya. And just a reminder, does it really matter for our personal growth if a text was written by Adi Shankaracharya or any other guru? What really matters is what we can get from the text that will help us in our lives. It's unfortunate, many times scholars will debate and argue over who wrote the text, the authenticity of the text, which is fine if you're a historian, if you're a scholar, but for our purposes, we are not studying the text, we are using the text, a text, any text, to help us become better, to help us grow. So the next several verses revert back to more talking about society, dharma, what is our duty, what is our responsibility. So kaha brahmanaihi upasyaha, who is to be worshipped or meditated upon, contemplated by whom? Brahmanaihi, by the brahmanas. Here brahmanas doesn't have to be the brahmana caste, but it can mean just any learned person. And the answer is Gayatri Arka Agni Gocharaha Shambhu. So Shambhu, Shiva, is to be meditated upon or worshipped. But what kind of Shiva? Not talking about the Dakshinamurti or the Shiva Linga that we have on our altar, but Shiva in the form of Gochara. Gochara means perceived. Shiva who is seen as Gayatri, the Gayatri mantra, Arka, Arka is the sun, and Agni, Agni is fire. So Shiva in the form of Gayatri mantra, sun and fire is to be worshipped. And it's important for Hindus, for other religions who don't really understand what Hinduism and what these teachings are about, may tend to think that Hinduism is very quote unquote backward or more focused on nature, because Hindus worship the sun, Hindus worship fire. Hindus do worship sun and fire, but they are not worshipping that particular element. They're worshipping, back up. So in the children's classes, Swamiji would always ask the children, do Hindus worship sun? And of course, little kids, whatever they've heard from their parents or they've learned in other classes, they would say yes. And then Swamiji would ask, so what is the sun? Sun is a big ball of burning gas. And the next question would be, so do Hindus worship this big gigantic ball of burning gas? Obviously not. So Hindus worship God, Ishvara, in these different forms. And that's what this verse is saying, that who is to be worshipped is Shambhu. Shambhu means Shiva. Shiva is another name for Shiva, in the form of Gayatri, sun, and fire. So why is sun and fire we kind of can maybe understand. Fire was used, the yajnas, the homas were always done with fire rituals, and the fire was considered to be a messenger of that particular worship. And the sun, without the sun, we won't be able to do anything. But why the Gayatri? So most of you know the Gayatri mantra is one of the most chanted mantras for Hindus. It's also one of the, it occurs in the Rig Veda, which is the oldest of the Vedas, and it is offered to the sun as Savitru. Sun is another name for sun is Savitru. So Gayatri mantra is offered to Savitru, the sun. Remember, all these elements in nature, like the sun, the earth, the thunder, lightning, had a devata associated with them, had a deity or a god associated with them in our scriptures. And Gayatri mantra is to this deity that is the sun, that is behind the sun. It's called Gayatri, and you've also heard Swamiji say that it's not to goddess Gayatri, which I think, I don't remember, I haven't been to this Durga Mandir in a long time, but they used to have a murti. Do they still have it? Gayatri, and it's called goddess Gayatri with many hands. And they chant the Gayatri mantra there. It's not to goddess Gayatri, but it is actually to the sun. And it's called Gayatri because it is in this Gayatri meter, which has 3 lines of 8 syllables each. So the mantra itself, most of you know this, is just going to be a refresher, but if you haven't heard it before, then it's new to you. So the mantra itself is just 3 lines, but it's often preceded by Om, Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha. So Om is any mantra in the Rig Veda, in any of the Vedas that you take out of you're chanting just a portion of the mantra, you have to recite it beginning with an Om. And then Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, and Suvaha, or Swaha. Bhuhu means the earth, Bhuvaha means anything in between, and Suvaha means the heaven. So it's usually preceded by these 4 words, Om and these 3 words. But these are not part of the Gayatri, technically. The Gayatri really starts with Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonaf Prachodayat. So Dhimahi, we meditate upon what? Tat Varenyam, that sacred or supreme Devasya Bhargas, the light of Deva, of the god, as Savituhu, the sun. Yaha Prachodayat, may that light, may that supreme light of God, may he illumine, may he enlighten us, if you want. Illumine, I wouldn't say enlighten, because the next word is Naha Dhiyaha. May that God illumine our minds. May we become bright, quote unquote bright. And just, if you look at a day like today, the sun is not out, any of your minds are kind of dull. I know mine is. My voice is very low. When the sun is up, you feel like you want to do something. You want to be active. So it could also mean that may that light of the sun, may kind of get us going. This Gayatri mantra is important. Is an important part of the Upanayanam ceremony, the Janeyu Janeyu thread ceremony, because that's the mantra that the father recites in the ear of the son who is getting that thread, going through that ceremony, because that becomes a part of the daily rituals of the Sandhya Vandanam. So the son is supposed to recite it every day. So in this verse, this Gayatri, Arka, Agni, so who are the people, who should the Brahmanas, the learned people, meditate upon? It connects to the learned people who are, so if you take it as the priests, obviously their minds need to be sharp to be able to do all the rituals and chant. But even if you take it as just you and me, we need to have a focused mind. We need to have a bright mind, for a sharp mind, for pretty much anything in our lives. If you've taken like a muscle relaxant or something like antihistamine, which puts you to sleep or makes your mind really dull, it's really hard to, for the mind to get going until the drug kind of wears off. So that's why Gayatri mantra is Shiva is worshipped in the form of this Gayatri mantra. Cha kim no, but what is present? Gayatriyam aditye agnau shambhau cha. So this verse is going one step further. What is present? Gayatriyam, in the Gayatri mantra, aditye, in the sun, agnau, in the fire, cha, and shambhau, and in Shambhu or Shiva. So this is saying a learned person worships God, Shiva, in these three ways. But what is beyond that? What is commonality? What is commonly present in these three? Meaning, what is the underlying cause for the Gayatri, for the sun, and for the fire, and for Shiva? What is the underlying cause? And the answer is very simple: Tat Tattvam. Tattva means that truth or the highest reality. We saw in the last class Sat, the word Sat or Satyam, referring to Atma or Brahman consciousness. There is a way to bring this, the importance of this Tattvam in connection with light. There is a verse in the Katha Mundaka and Shvetashvatara Upanishad that is often used during Arti, and when we do puja, we end with a Vedic Arti. And this offering is done with a camphor light. So you have to imagine yourselves going to visiting an ancient temple in India, maybe in a small village where there's no electric lights or no bulbs. And usually that's how in ancient times temples were designed, because they didn't have electricity. And at the end of the puja, at the end of that worship, the priest would light a small camphor lamp, and even now they do it symbolically, and wave that lamp around, showing the face, the hands, the feet, the entire form of the deity in that very dimly lit lamp. And while he would wave that, he would chant the mantra that most of us know, na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam, that we chant here. So literally that priest waving that lamp was to point to the light, to that light, no pun in, there's literally a pun there, but I'm not bringing it out. So that light, which represents, and chanting this mantra, the priest would say, na tatra suryo bhati. Tatra suryaha, the sun, na bhati, does not shine. The sun does not shine there. Na chandra tarakam, nor do the stars and the moon. Nema vidyuto bhanti, nor does vidyut. Vidyut means lightning. Kuto yamag, kutaha ayam agnihi. So the sun, remember, he's waving this lamp and he's showing it at a deity, and he's saying, the verse is saying, mantra is saying, the sun does not shine there, the moon and the stars do not, the lightning doesn't, kutaha ayam agni. So what to talk of this little, measly little camphor lamp that we are waving. Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. So tameva, he's addressing the deity. Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. Everything anubhati shines after or is a reflection of tameva bhantam, your light alone. So referring to your, everything shines after him, quote unquote, or your light. Tasya bhasa sarvam idham vibhati. This entire universe, sarvam idham, tasya bhasa, vibhati, shines after or is illuminated by his light, by the, so the sun, the moon, the stars, the lightning. So this tam is obviously not referring to the deity that the priest is waving the camphor lamp around, but it refers to Brahman or consciousness, tat satyam, that tat tattvam in this verse. So this entire universe, including the sun, the moon, the stars, this camphor lamp, are constantly changing. They are transient, and we saw in last class, they are mithya. They do not have an independent existence. They depend, the sun and the moon and the stars depend on that truth, that reality, satyam, for their existence. So symbolically, when the priest is chanting that light, showing us the form of the deity, it is to remind us really that we are not praying to a 3-foot or a 4-foot murti, form of God, but we are invoking, reminding ourselves about that highest reality, because of which this 3-foot or 4 feet murti is present, because of which the sun, the moon, the stars, lightning exist. Because of Brahman, because of Sat, which is the source of all. So in this verse, Gayatriyam Aditye Agnau Shambhau Cha, all these have their underlying cause in what? Tat Tattvam, in that reality. And you know, sometimes it's great to have an Ishta Devata. In fact, that is what is recommended. You have a favorite deity that you connect to. But many times we don't grow out of that. We have an Ishta Devata, we connect to that God, and we do puja and worship and meditation, which is all great. But with these teachings, and which is great at an emotional level. If you're feeling miserable, instead of taking your misery out on your family members or your children or your co-workers, you can vent to your Ishta Devata, your favorite deity. But many times we just take this aspect throughout our lives. It is good to have this devotional aspect for cultivating an emotional relationship with Ishvara, with God. But ultimately, the teachings of Advaita Vedanta are saying with that verse, what is the reality, underlying reality of that Ishta Devata? It is Brahman, it is Satyam. Pratyaksha Devata ka Mata Pujo Guruschakaha Tataha Kasarva Devatatma Vidya karmanvito vipraha. Vidya karmanvito vipraha. So, ka pratyaksha devata, who is the direct or immediate perceptible goddess? And the answer is Mata, mother. Why? Many reasons. Mother is the first caregiver for in our lives. Of course, she gives birth to us literally. Imagine if the mother gives birth, and unfortunately this happens, mother gives birth and abandons the baby. So mother is the first caregiver, first nourisher, feeds us, nourishes us. Mother is the first teacher. Mother teaches the baby how to eat, how to walk, how to crawl, how to walk, how to speak, how to tie the shoelaces. These are just silly things that came to my mind. And as you grow older, mother teaches how to. This is, of course, in a traditional family living in ancient times. Now roles are changed. A lot of fathers also do that, but this verse is talking about mother. Mother teaches us, important for our physical and emotional growth, for pretty much everything in our lives, which is sacred as well as secular. She teaches us how to live in this world, how she inculcates values. Mother inculcates values, tells the child what is right from wrong, teaches dharma and adharma. Mother teaches us how to pray. Even though many times, at least children growing up in this country question, if the mother says, take the light of the arti to your eyes, the child is going to question why. Even though the mother may not know the answer herself, but she's teaching the child, she's showing the child how to pray. So she is therefore pratyaksha devata. She is the direct, immediate perceptible goddess. And there's a stotra from Skanda Purana which says, Nasti matru sama chaya, na asti chaya. There is no shade or shadow. Here we would take it as shade, matru sama, like mother. There is nothing, no shade that protects us equal to the mother. Nasti matru sama gatihi. There is no path or shelter, matru sama, equal to the mother. Where am I? Nasti matru samam tranam. Tranam means protector. There is no protector, na asti matru samam. There is no protector equal to a mother. I'm sure you've seen, if you've seen a newly born animal, like a cat or a kitten, or even a bird. I remember walking one time, there was one of these geese with a little geeslings. I don't know what the goslings, geeslings. And I was just walking, and the mother was so protective. She was ready to attack me. So the mother is like the animal kingdom, a really fierce protector of a newborn. Nasti matru sama prapa. Prapa literally means a place where for supplying water, but here you can take it as a protector or a nourisher, defendant. So na asti matru sama, there is no nourisher or a defender equal to mother. And if you, unfortunately, if you yourself or you know somebody where a child, the mother either passes away due to illness, or the mother abandons the child, or mother has, in this country you see so many young mothers who are addicted to drugs and cannot take care of the baby. As the child grows up, even into adult life, you can see the effects of not having a mother, not being nourished by the mother, how that person's behavior, that person's life turns out to be. It affects their entire adult life. So, if you have been blessed to have a loving, caring, wonderful mother, a very nourishing mother, you've done tons of punya to have that blessing in your life, to have that support and the care in your life. So on this Mother's Day, tomorrow Mother's Day, in this country it's big. It's very funny. People celebrate Mother's Day, you know, with thank you. That's the one, at least the one day they're remembering their mother. Of course, that's a foreign concept to our culture, to Hindu culture. For everything that the mother has done, even your whole lifetime is not enough to thank her. But at least let's take this, on this Mother's Day, a big thank you to all mothers, especially those who are watching out there, including mine. My mother watches my classes, and then she'll ask me questions on that. If you've been blessed to have such a mother, a big thank you for everything she has done for us. So that was my little connection to mother. It just happened that this verse falls on Mother's Day. The next part of the verse, Kaha guruhu cha, and who is the guru? Pujyaha. Who is the guru who is to be revered? Who is the first guru? And the answer is Tataha, father. So while mother is considered to be the first guru in terms of giving life, nurturing, bringing up the child, the father is usually, and traditionally, is regarded to be the first Vidya Guru, the first guru who gives spiritual and social guidance to the child. Of course, like I said, in modern days, the roles have changed, can change in current times. There is a verse in the Padma Purana that says, Sharira Krit Pranadata Pita. Pita, father, is Sharira Krit, the one who makes this body, who gives this body. Pranadata, who is the giver of life. Pujyatamaha Smritaha, and Smritaha is considered or thought to be Pujyatama, the most respected, deserves most respect. Tasya Shushrushanam. So Shushrushanam, doing service or following the father, his service, Tasya, following him, being devoted to him. Dharmam Paramam is the highest dharma, and this is said Manuhu Abravit, is said in the Manu Shastras by sage Manu. So both father and mother are important for, I have to back that up. So in the current times, when you have families with two mothers as the parent, or two fathers, where you have gay and lesbians marrying and raising a child, obviously, if they're doing a good job, no problem with that. But remember the context of this text. In ancient times, family means one father, one mother. And that's why they're talking about both mother and father being important for the child's welfare. And Kaha Sarva Devatatma. Who is the Atma, who is the self of all the Devas, Devatas? The answer is Vidya Karma Anvitaha Vipraha. Vipraha means a Brahmana, a person who Vidya Karma Anvitaha, who performs or who practices karma, karma here means Vaidika karma, the rituals that are enjoined in the scriptures, and who is Vidya, who has gained this knowledge. So such a person who performs rituals and has the knowledge is the beloved, or the Atma, who's beloved to the Devatas, the self of all. This may not seem very relevant to us because most of us aren't performing rituals, but there is a very nice, I remember a child who's reading the story as a child in Amar Chitra Katha, and many of you know this, the story of Sudama and Krishna. Sudama was also called Kuchela. Gives an example, this story is mentioned as an example of such a person who was performed all his rituals, did all the duties, and also had knowledge. So just a very short story, Sudama and Krishna were childhood friends. They were classmates growing up in an ashram, at their guru's ashram. As they grew, Krishna later went on to become the king of Dwaraka, and Sudama went back to his village and he was a very poor Brahmana. He lived a life of poverty. But despite his struggles, he continued to practice. He was a devoted scholar, continued to do his Vaidika karma, never asking for anything special. Of course, then he gets married, he has children, and the children are, there's not enough money to buy food for the kids. And after a lot of nagging from his wife, a wife tells him, you have this friend Krishna, who is the king of Dwaraka, why don't you go and ask him for money? Sudama is very reluctant, but she kind of lays the guilt trip on him, said, your children are starving, can't you see that? This is my version of the story. I don't think this actually happened, because his wife was, to be married to him, she was also probably very much in sync with his values. But Sudama agrees, and he goes to see Krishna, but he doesn't want to go empty-handed. So he takes a little handful of this poha. Poha is this beaten rice, wrapped up in a little bundle, and he goes to the palace. Of course, at the gates, the king's guards see his, and he's not well dressed, he's a poor person. The king's guards see his tattered clothes and don't let him in. But Krishna hears his voice from inside the palace, and he comes running out. He's so excited to see that his friend has come to visit him. So he comes running out and he hugs Sudama, and very happy. And then Krishna notices that Sudama has a little pouch, trying to hide a little that pouch where he's holding the poha in. So Krishna snatches it from him, and he opens it, and he takes a handful and he eats it. And Krishna says, this is the best poha I have ever had. So Sudama is just overjoyed, and he spends some time with Krishna. After some time, he's just so overjoyed at this king's, his old friend's reaction to seeing him and to his little handful of rice that he brought for him, that Sudama completely forgets to ask him for any help. He forgets why he was there. So they spend a few days, they go here. Sudama goes back to his village, and when he goes back to his village, he sees that his hut, which was in shambles, has been replaced by this huge golden palace. His family is all dressed in fine silk, and his children are, they have nice food to eat. So connecting it to this verse, by accepting this humble rice, Krishna, as a divine, has given infinite prosperity upon his friend, without his friend even having to utter a single word. So such a person who is contented with his lot, who is not envious, not greedy, who does his karma, vidya karma anvitaha, the one who is mind. So by doing the Vaidika karmas and getting knowledge implies your mind is constantly fixed on the divine, constantly fixed on God. So such a person is Sarva Devatatma, who is dear to all, who's dear to all the gods, who is the self of the gods themselves. Kascha kulakshaya hetuhu santapas sajjaneshu yo akari. So there is a typo in the PDF that sajjaneshu should have an additional jakara. Kesham amogha vachanam ye cha punas satyam mauna shama shilaha. So kaha, cha, and who is what? Kulakshaya hetuhu. Who is the hetu, the cause of kulakshaya, for the destruction. Kshaya means decay or destruction of the kula, of the family lineage? And the answer is yaha santapaha akari, the one who does or acts, yaha akari, who causes santapaha, who causes pain or suffering, aggravates or disturbs, who? Saj janeshu, disturbs the good people, dharmic people. And there is a Puranic story in connection with this of a king and the sage Jamadagni. You may have heard of the story as well. So this king Kartavirya was a very powerful king, and he had, the story said he had 1,000 arms. I don't know how, but he had 1,000 arms, maybe symbolic of his power. So one day, while he was in the forest hunting, he comes upon, all his men are tired, and they see a hut, and he goes to the hut, and there is a sage by the name Jamadagni who's living in that hut. And the king asks for food. So this Jamadagni, he's a poor sage, he doesn't have enough food, but he has this magical divine cow called Kamadhenu. Kamadhenu literally means a wish-fulfilling cow. So with the help of this cow, the sage was able to feed the entire army of the king. Of course, the king now wanted, because of his greed and pride, he wanted that cow for himself. The sage refused to give it to him because the cow was also used for his prayers and his rituals. The king orders his soldiers to forcibly steal that cow from him, and then they leave. They take the cow, the king takes the cow and leaves to his palace, goes away. Later, when the sage was meditating, the king's sons come and kill Jamadagni. So Jamadagni had a son by the name of Parashurama. If you remember, if you know the Dashavatara, Parashurama is one of the avatars, 10 avatars of Vishnu. Parashu literally means axe. So the one who wielded that axe is Parashurama, is the avatar of Vishnu. When Parashurama returns from wherever he was, he comes and he sees his father has been killed, and he sees his mother inconsolable. He gets extremely angry, and he finds out what has happened. So he goes to that king's palace, he kills him, chops off his 1,000 arms, kills his entire army single-handed. So that, remember, avatar of God, very forceful. So remember, avatars come for restoring dharma. So this was an act, an adharmic act that was done by the king. So this Parashurama destroys his and the king's entire lineage and ends a dynasty that had ruled for generations. So by doing this one act of stealing that cow that did not belong to him, and by killing the sage, the king had got so much papa that it ended up destroying his whole lineage. So, kaha kala kulashaya hetu, what is the cause for the destruction of the lineage? Is this doing things, doing adharmic things. So how, most of us are not going around to kill with axes in our hands, killing thousands of people. So how does this verse relate to us? Imagine if you were related to a sociopath or a social, somebody who has committed a crime, has gone on a killing spree. Unfortunately, you hear of this in so many news nowadays, and past few years actually. Some kid or some adult goes on a killing spree, just killing people randomly, perhaps because of mental illness, we don't know, there could be many, many reasons. But imagine if you were related to such a person. And you were living in a small town, there's only one grocery store, you go to the grocery store, everybody knows who you are. How is your interaction, how are people going to be interacting with you? How are people going to be looking at you? How is your life how are you going to be living your life being related to such a person? And whatever the cause for that killing spree is not the point of the discussion. The point is really, if you're related to somebody who has caused adharma, who has caused himsa, you get affected, the entire family gets affected. And the next half of the verse, Kesham, whose amogha vachanam, whose words are unfailing or whose words are fruitful, ye cha punaha, those who, and again, those who are satyam, whose words are truthful, who are mauna shama shilaha, who have a shila, who have a good moral conduct, who have a good character, and who are maunam, who are silent. Silent when needed, we have to add that. It's not like when somebody is talking to you and you just are so passive that you don't even interact in the conversation, not that kind of silence. Silent when needed, that basically it means somebody who's disciplined in their speech. And shama, the one somebody who's calm and peaceful, meaning exercising. So being calm and peaceful when you're triggered, when your buttons are pushed. So having control over one's mind. Shilaha, having a good moral character. So such a person whose words, and it's coming back to our importance of speech, of how we speak, and we've seen that in many classes before. Satyam, priyam, hitam, mitam. Satyam being truthful, priyam being pleasant, speech being pleasant, hitam beneficial. Why are you speaking? Is it helping anybody, or you're just speaking to not feel uncomfortable because of the silence in the conversation? And mitam, measured. Is your speech measured? And we've seen the 4 W's and 2 H's. Just to recap, the 4 W's, what, why, when, and whom, and the 2 H's, how and how much. I was thinking of a mnemonic because I just find this, if this one sadhana we can cultivate really with dedication, our speech, our monitoring our speech, it is one of the best things you can ever do for yourself in every aspect of your life. And this is the hardest to control, to cultivate, to develop. So I was thinking of, but I think most of you may not remember the Sanskrit word satyam, hitam, priyam. If you don't remember, you'll remember the 4 H's, 4 W's and 2 H's. And I came up with a mnemonic for that. So let's see if that works for you. Have you wondered about how the world works so well? So just take the first letter. Have you wondered about how the world works so well? If the mnemonic helps, then you can remember it. If it doesn't help, you don't need to. But just working on this vak tapas, this austerity of speech, is something that will take you places, literally. Okay. Kim janma vishaya sangaha kim uttaram janma putrasyat. So kim janma, what cause, literally what is birth, but you can take what causes birth. Vishaya sangaha. So the answer is not in a worldly sense, that your mother conceived and you were born, but it really is Vishaya Sangaha. In a Vedantic context, birth is due to attachment. Sangha, attachment to Vishaya, to objects. Objects meaning people, experiences. And it's basically telling us what our ragas and dveshas, our likes and dislikes, makes us attached. And this raga dvesha is what leads to birth. So this raga dvesha, our likes and dislikes, because of the So this is the triad. You've heard Swamiji speak. Avidya, kama, karma. Because of this fundamental avidya, ignorance of our true nature, being full and complete, we seek happiness, we seek contentment out there. We have likes and desires, we pursue our likes, thinking that pursuing that fulfillment of that desire will make us happy. Avoidance of something that you don't like, a dvesha, will make us happy. So we have these kamas, and we do karma to fulfill these kamas. So this triad of avidya, ignorance, kama, desire, and karma. What happens when you do a karma? We've seen in prior classes, when you do an action, there are seen results, drishtaphala, and unseen results. The seen results, usually you see them right away after an action. The unseen results, remember, are the pending results that have not occurred. They can come in this lifetime, another lifetime, whenever. So that's what it means. So this unseen results, vishayas, which are the results that are born because of vishaya sangaha, our attachment, because of ignorance of our true nature, is what causes janma. And how to get out of this cycle, everything we are doing here is getting this knowledge so that we recognize our true nature, so that we don't identify with that karta, the doer of the karma, or the bhokta, the experiencer of the results, that will ultimately free us from this cycle of birth. Cycle of birth meaning the cycle of this life of, Pujya Swamiji uses the word, the life of becoming. And we'll leave the, yeah, I think we'll stop there for today. The next part is also talking about janma, but it's a little involved answer. So we are almost at the end of the text, which we should finish next class. We might, depending on how much time we have, might have a little different format for next class after we complete the verses. Okay, we'll end with our prayers. Om sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaः, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritangamaya. Om shanti shanti shanti. Harihi om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi om. Thank you all.